not allowing Mike to take back the lead. Phil with another miss. Mike now starting the final string. Neither shooter giving an inch. Phil has now used up both preloaded magazines and has to hand load the rest. Mike has tied it up. Mike retakes the lead. Phil struggling to reload. Mike down to his last target. Phil's running out of time. That's it! Cease fire! Cease fire!
And there you go. A very close elimination round, and how we got there was awfully surprising as well. Let's welcome to the program Phil Morden from Top Shot. Phil, thank you so much for coming on the program tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me, Cam.
Absolutely. You know, I got to say, I love this show, and I made no bones about it. I love this show for the shooting aspects far more than the personality, reality show aspects, but this week sucked me in. This week sucked me in, Phil. I was shocked when we saw the departure of Jake.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're not the only one. You know, everybody in the house was a little surprised by it based on credentials alone compared to mine. You know, you'd figured he would have stayed around a little bit longer just to see, how he could match up against the rest of the house. But I don't know if it was a fear of losing or if he had just had enough of the competition. You know, none of us are really sure. We never got a good closure from that.
We've seen contestants have to leave the program before. A family member gets sick, they've got to go. It's always a tough decision. But this was the first time we saw somebody walk out just on their own.
Right.
What was that like at the house when that happened? I mean, was there just disbelief? Was there any relief? I mean, what was, clearly there had been some conflicts with Jake and other people in the house. What was that? What was the first reaction?
Well, it wasn't anything new to the people in the house. You know, we had heard it before.
Yeah.
We had heard a few things, when we were on the red team, we didn't get to see any of the blue guys meeting. We didn't sit in on any of that stuff, but evidently there was some threats of throwing challenges and leaving the show. He didn't want to be there anymore. So as far as that was concerned, nothing new. But it was more stressful when he did leave, I think, for the rest of the people in the competition outside of myself. I was pretty confident that I was going to go to elimination no matter what. But the other guys in the house, Gary was on the bubble as well. And I think that kind of put into perspective for him, he may have to go and shoot against me when he really shouldn't have. He did well enough in the challenge to stay out of the elimination.
Right.
And Jake kind of threw a monkey wrench in that whole thing by leaving. So I think everybody in the house was a little stressed out as to what was going to happen.
And what ultimately happened, Colby said, well, there's got to be an elimination challenge. Just because it was you and Jake walked out, that doesn't mean that the challenge isn't going to happen. So, did you feel like, how did the process work that Mike ended up in the elimination round with you?
Well, evidently Top Shot has a rule in place, and at the time we weren't informed of that because I'm sure they don't ever think anybody's going to leave, the season out of their own free will.
Right.
Unless it's something to do with family like we had with Billy this season. So I'm sure it's a contingency plan that they have in place that they figured they're never going to have to tell the competitors about. And if that's the way that it is, one person leaves, they bring back the last shooter that got eliminated. When it gets to the individual stages, then that's the way that they run the operation, which is fine. We're totally understanding of that. Mike Hughes was, the first one eliminated from the green team, so he got essentially a second shot at it.
And so let's talk about the guns that you guys were actually using this week, particularly in the elimination round. You guys go out with the Sacco TRG rifle. Was this something that you were familiar with?
I have shot bolt action rifles before, but nothing of that nature, not a tactical bolt action. Everything's been more hunting rifles. But fundamentally it's all the same.
Right.
Once you gathered what you had to do with that gun and you got a nice idea of the trigger pull and everything and how to manipulate the bolt, it's just like shooting a old Remington 700. It's about the same thing. It's just got a lot more precision to it. So I was excited to shoot it based on the fact that it is more along my realm of firearms. I'm into more of the AR-15s and the more tactical guns. So, that played to my advantage. I think I was more familiar with that kind of weapon system than Mike is.
So what was the problem with the magazine, Phil? What happened?
Well, that was completely my fault. But what happened was the rounds, as they were placed on the bench, were facing the opposite direction of what I would have preferred to load. So when I reached down to grab them, I tried to flip it over in my hand, and I just went too fast. As I was flipping the magazine over, I kind of bubbled it, and it flew off the platform there. And as soon as I did that, the whole thing was slow down. Take your time with this next one, because at that point I was still in it, somewhat. If I shot it clean, I think that I could have at least brought it down to the wire more.
I got to say, I mean, it was neck and neck. I mean, really, it looked to me like that was the difference in the competition was just those couple of seconds that it took for you to start loading by hand. Overall, Phil, I mean, this episode and your experience in Top Shot could have to describe what it was like to be on this show and what it was like to go home this way.
Well, first of all, the show is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Jake will say otherwise and this and that, but it really was in the fact that you're thrown into this situation with 15 other people, and you are shooting for the $100,000, and that's on everybody's mind. But at the same time, you're there for the experience. Mm-hmm. Most of us are. That we're there to make friends and hopefully not disrupt the pot so much that we get people in the house to dislike us. If they had a reunion show, I would definitely be the first one to put in my application. I would go back in a second. I'd have no problem taking the work off for that. I think it's something that if you ever have the opportunity to do it, you do it, and you stick it out, and you try and be honorable while you're there. You try and not, make people angry at you, because you're all there as sportsmen. The firearms community, as I've said before, has some of the greatest people in it out there. I've seldom met somebody in the firearms community that I've disliked.
Yeah.
And, Jake will even admit to, everybody that he's not a firearms guy. So right there, it just goes to show that for the most part, people that shoot and shoot often, they're really nice people. And I met, 14 other people in that house that were great.
Well, listen, Phil, I think that I think you acquitted yourself extremely well. We talk about being good ambassadors for the Second Amendment on this program, and I think that you showed a lot of class and grace last night. I think that you definitely exhibited a good ambassadorship. And I guess final question for you. I mean, do you think that Top Shot itself is in a way a good ambassador for the Second Amendment, a good ambassador or a good way to introduce people to gun ownership and really the fun of shooting?
Oh, absolutely. Even with these challenges, the way that they're set up, they're pretty crazy. You're not going to do this stuff at your house, but it does show to a lot of the viewers at home that otherwise wouldn't, ever pick up a firearm, that they see how much fun we're having there. And yeah, we shoot a lot, but I've come back from this thing and been a huge advocate for family members and friends to really get out there and shoot and start shooting more, because it's an extremely fun thing to do, with your friends and family. And I think that that's important. It's important for fathers and sons to get out there and shoot together, and friends alike. You go out with your buddies and take your guns out. Let them shoot them. Let everybody get comfortable with them, and people will see that this is a very fun hobby to have.
Absolutely. Hey, Phil, thank you again, sir, for coming on the program. I was sorry to see you leave from Top Shot, but like I said, I think you did a great job, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Well, thanks so much, sir. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much.